Hello and welcome to the Omnex webinar, Solutions for Achieving World-Class APQP NPD for Companies and Their Suppliers. Today's presenters are Dave Watkins. Dave Watkins is the Executive Vice President and Principal Consultant for Omnex. Dave has been involved in the evolution of risk management for new product development and launch, first as a manager and executive at a number of organizations supplying the automotive, aerospace, and agricultural equipment industries, then as a consultant and trainer with a primary focus on APQP and PPAP. Our second presenter is Nikhil Unnakrishnan. Nikhil is Omnex's project manager for EV/AV products. Nikhil has been involved in performing detailed document reviews, automotive SPICE functional safety and QMS assessments, process documentation development, and conducting rollouts for numerous leading automotive organizations, including multiple software and hardware systems. During this webinar, if you have any questions for the presenters, please enter them in the Q&A box, and they will get to them to the best of their ability at the end of the webinar. All right, Dave and Nikhil, you can take it away.
Hi, thank you, Miles. And hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this webinar on solutions for achieving world-class new product development launch and incorporating APQP. Not a new topic for many of you, I suspect, but given the fact that various industries have elected to begin to require PPAP and APQP, timely, particularly as we are aware now that the Department of Defense is preparing to roll out an APQP and PPAP requirement for all defense contractors. And that includes not only aerospace, but obviously surface and weapon systems and seagoing craft and everything. So that whole side of the world is going to be being revolutionized as this happens. So just to give you, those of you who didn't dial in early and have a chance to watch the crawl, I'm going to give you a quick introduction to Omnex. We are headquartered in the US in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and have global main regional offices in Berlin, Germany, and Chennai, India, and Shanghai. We've been at this as an organization for over 35 years. And have grown to be a substantial company. In fact, I think we're now one of the larger ones in the world doing what we do. We have been participants or responsible for helping to author many of the standards that govern not only quality, but environment, health, safety, cybersecurity, functional safety, and have contributed on those committees, as well as to the authoring and writing of a number of the AIAG manuals. Those of you who are familiar with the Core Tools Blue Books, associates of ours have been on the authoring committees, essentially of all of them. And we developed the first integrated software solution for creating, for authoring and publishing linked process flows, FMEAs, and control plans, and down to work instructions. And then that solution has grown to a global integrated platform that we'll be talking about, because it is one of the best-in-class approaches to solving the problem that confronts all of us. And then we are participants in organizations all over the world. This is a quick look at where we are. I will mention now that you will have available to you on request a complete slide deck. There are a number of pages in this presentation that we're not covering due to time constraints, but they will be there when you get a copy of the PDF, and you can review them. And if you find something that is curious, you can email one or the other of us to respond to any questions you have for material we didn't cover during this very brief webinar. We are a multi-industry organization. In fact, this is just the top tiers of what areas we practice in, to the point in the evolution of electronic and autonomous vehicles. We have a whole platform and industry segment website for that, along with our overall Omnex website. But you can see that we concentrate a lot in automotive, aerospace, semiconductor, medical devices, EV/AV, and general manufacturing. And as I tell some of my friends, my life has become a movie, planes, trains, and automobiles, because I've been focused over the last 10 years or so in deploying APQP and PPAP in other than the automotive industry, principally aerospace, defense, and high tech and semiconductor. Today, we're going to just recap the fact that there are serious challenges. There have always been serious challenges to deploying APQP, both within our own organizations and even more so in deploying it to our vendors and having it work. There have been, I would call them, strategic errors in the way that these things were introduced and continue to be introduced in industries by starting off with PPAP rather than starting off with requirements management, which is where we should start. We're going to talk about the fact that it's fundamentally impossible to do a robust approach to new product development, launch, and APQP without a best-in-class type IT solution to support and enable it. So Nikhil is going to be showing you one which is remarkable in the way that, and I'm speaking as a user, it's remarkable in the way that it connects everything to a single locus, so that if you're a program manager or a project manager, you can go into this solution and you'll have everything right in front of you and access to everything related to any of your projects, even scaling down through the product architecture. If you're at the system level or subsystem level, it's actually quite remarkable. We're going to talk then about how we get this to evolve in suppliers. My experience in aerospace over the last few years in particular has been the challenge of bringing in suppliers who've been in a traditional industry for decades and are suddenly confronted with, and they've always had the need for these solutions, but now they've been confronted with the requirements for these solutions. And the same is happening in medical devices and in other in telecommunications technology. It is becoming a universal solution to the performance problems that these industries suffer from unsuccessful launches, and for ongoing problems with delivery, with product conformity, with performance of the product, almost all of which are directly attributable to not doing the things you need to do early enough in the process of developing, launching, and then continually improving your products and processes and services for that matter. And so we'll be focusing some time on how to deploy this to the supply chain. And we'll be showing you also a live demo of a supply chain management solution, which is, again, fully integrated platform rather than just tools. Many of you are familiar with APQP, but I would argue that even in companies today that I go into, or we go into, we find that this process is not really understood. It's seen as paperwork, it's seen as individual activities. There's a lack of understanding of the need for advanced product quality planning to be an integrated element in your new product development, launch, and continual improvement process. And you may say, oh no, that's old stuff to us. Well, unless you have a highly automated and integrated technology solution to this, even if it's old hat, it's a struggle. And it is not nearly as effective as it needs to be. Even with the improvements that we've seen in some industries, like the automotive industry, where defect levels and delivery performance and everything have improved by leaps and bounds, there are still critical failures, critical issues. All you have to do is read the newspapers or go online to see literally product-related disasters that were avoidable had the tools and methodologies that we're talking about been employed properly. And the reason for this, in my experience, is that the leadership of the organizations involved have not yet, many at least, have not yet really digested the value proposition and how good it is for the bottom line and how good it is for competitive advantage to employ this process to integrate it fully into your new product development launch process. So for those of you for this, that this seems like old hat, well, we'll see if you feel that way towards the end. Because this is a process that can always be enhanced, but the main aspect of it that needs to be enhanced is that it is fully integrated into your new product development process. And look, part of the reason that it is not integrated the way that it needs to be is because of the tools being employed. Every organization we go into, not only do they have maybe a document management system, they may have more than one. They may be using TeamShare, SharePoint, Documentum. I've been in companies that are large enough and global enough that they have 2 or 3 different document management solutions, which not surprisingly don't talk to each other and which operate by different rules and which make it extraordinarily difficult to simply find a document that you need. Almost every organization that I go into is still trying to do FMEAs and related APQP documents using a spreadsheet solution like Excel. That is not feasible. It simply isn't. We invented the software that we did back in the mid 80s, literally, because of the perception we had that we would go to a client, we would show them how they needed to use the core tools, which were not institutionalized yet, how they needed to use the core tools, and then we realized they didn't know how to use them, so we developed training to teach them how to use it, and then we realized that without an automation solution, they would not be able to do it on a sustained basis. And we still see that in organizations today. Project management. So you'll have people doing FMEAs in Excel, they'll be doing document management in SharePoint, and they'll be doing project management in MS Project, and they're not linked to each other. They're not connected. You can't readily go into project management and look at a deliverable in a project and have it be right there. You have to go find it. It's not sitting there in the project. And so project managers or leadership teams trying to follow the status of a project or deliverables have to fish around for them. They're not readily available. The same thing may be true of the use of SPC, the use of doing measurement systems analyses, doing testing. They're all discrete tools sitting around somewhere on the network, and as a result, each function or department is working on their own little island. And those islands are not readily connected unless there is a solution. So what happens is, because of what I just described, it's extremely difficult for leadership and top management to keep track of literally what's going on with all the different programs and projects they have under their aegis. And they have to get people to compile and assemble reports and data and things like that and come in and present it to them. So you have these project management reviews going on continually, and they're conducted by people who had to go out and find all the bits and pieces and put them together into a presentation, rather than a manager who wants to know what a program is doing, being able to go in, click on the program, and have access to everything. The data, the documents, the status of every deliverable, the status of every supplier project, the status of PPAP submissions, the status of testing and test results and test failures. The idea that you could go to a single landing page and have all of that, not only in front of you, but by clicking on something, have it take you directly to that something. Without that, you get a lack of standardization. So we go from site to site to site with a company that's implementing, let's say, our APQP authoring software, AquaPro, and we find that at each site, the way that they do APQP and the way that they do process flows, FMEAs, control plans, operator and process instructions, inspection, they're different. From site to site, from business unit to business unit, there's no commonality or standardization, and everything's being done manually or in discrete tools, and it makes it essentially impossible to manage the outcomes, to predict the outcomes, and to ensure that that they meet the requirements. And what's ironic about this is there's no sharing. All of this work that's been done, it's very difficult to reuse. When somebody has developed a DFMEA for a subsystem and another version of that subsystem is being designed or built at another site or another division, that they're doing it over again. They're doing another system FMEA or design FMEA if they're doing design FMEAs without access to this work that's already been done. So knowledge reuse is very limited. All of this results in failures. It just does. It results in customer complaints, in warranty, and rework. The risk management tools, the design and process FMEAs are not effectively used to prevent failures. They're generally driven by control plans. We will consistently see circumstances in which control plans have had more and more things added to them. And then when you go back and look at the FMEA for that process, there's no consistency. The additions to the control plan haven't been driven by FMEA analysis. Part of the reason is because it's so hard to do. When those documents are separate Excel documents, even when people have built macro type solutions in Excel, they break. The macros break and the linkages are lost and even fundamental calculations get broken. That there is this issue of finding stuff. What we mean by lack of a seamless communication through distribution control is having to find stuff, having to go to directories and subdirectories. And I see it all the time with people that I'm interacting with, even online, that they say, well, I want to show you this. And then they go drilling down through all these directories, subdirectories, and everything to get to a file, to get to a document and open the document. If you had a master dashboard, you would just go and say, I need to see the FMEA for the project we're talking about, and boom, it opens the FMEA for that project. And you're not navigating through an endless series of directories and subdirectories. All of this relates to this bullet here, which is there's not a single access point. There's not a point that pulls all these things together and gives them to you as a dashboard and gives you access directly to them. It even makes audits difficult because the auditor says, well, show me this. And you're fumbling around, digging here, digging there, digging somewhere else to find something the auditor wants to see. Whereas with a proper dashboard, you have to walk them right through from the project initiation, the management of requirements, to the design and development with system and design FMEAs, test planning, the test results, and then into manufacturing just by clicking on icons on this directory. You could walk an auditor all the way through from concept to cash without leaving your desktop. All of this led to the evolution of what we call an enterprise solution, which is a platform made up of components that are all linked and integrated through a central dashboard, a central landing site, so you can manage requirements throughout the system, manufacturing controls, linked DFMEAs, test plans, process flows, FMEAs, control plans, linking right down to in-process and receiving and final inspection and data acquisition from that, management of the gauges that are in the control plans, the MSA studies, the MSA test results, all hardwired to the control plan, so that if you're looking at a control plan and you see a gauge or a fixture and you want to see what its current measurement system status is, you click on it. It takes you to the measurement systems database for that gauge, and you can see its calibration status, its measurement uncertainty, its gauge R&R, all of that. So all of that feeds up to an integrated view for top management and for leadership teams, and to a central control panel. And there are two versions of this, one which is designed specifically for APQP and functional safety, and one which is general APQP for any industry. One of the key problems with all of this is this alignment and linkage that you see cascading in front of you on the slide deck, which is from the requirements coming from the customer, legal and regulatory entities, project plans, objectives set for a program or a project, performance objectives, design objectives that translate into requirements, all of those feeding into the system or design FMEA, depending on what level of the architecture or the V model that you're working, and then cascading direct or linked directly to from the current design controls to the design verification test plan, the identification of critical failure modes, effects, and key characteristics, which then flow down into the process flow diagram. They're there automatically. When you open the process flow diagram, there's a characteristics table from the design activity into which you can populate your operations and your process flow. You create the process flow, and when you open the PFMEA, all those operations and characteristics are already in the PFMEA. They're already aligned, and you can go through the failure mode and effects analysis, generate at the end of it your current controls and your improvement actions. And when you open your control plan, all of those operations, characteristics, and current controls are already populated. But the point is not just the automation, it's the hardwired alignment so that these documents are consistent with each other, and those inspection controls cascade directly into work instructions and inspection data collection and reporting, which flows back to verify from the inspection level that we're meeting all of the requirements that came in up at the top. And there can be, there's essentially a feedback loop back to the design and development activity to understand where there are manufacturing issues. Now, if you're looking at this picture, you're looking at the Holy Grail. If you're a program manager or a project manager, you are looking at the Holy Grail, because as Nikhil is going to show you in a couple of minutes, you actually with Active Directory, you're already logged in. You go to your landing page and you have a number of projects. So let's say you got a structure, you see, I'm going to back up. You can see that there's a V model and high level system, subsystem down to component level. You select which level at which you want to work, and everything on this page will be recast at that level of the project. And what do I mean will be recast? Well, you'll have the project teams who are working on that project doing various activities, direct access to them and the people. You'll have access directly to the timing plan, which is a complete template, just like you get in Microsoft Office. And if you need to look at something in it, you click on it right there on that homepage and it opens up the whole timing plan. If you want to look at the requirements for the project at the level at which you are, you click in the middle box and it takes you to the requirements section, and you can see an entire module for managing requirements through design, development, and testing. If you are working at configuration, there's a hard link to the configuration for that project. Now, mind you, if you go back to the structure and you move to a different level or a different project, all of what you see on that screen is going to be recast with the relevant links for that project or that program at that level. Now we're talking about magic. I mean, I'm sitting here and I say, well, I need to see the DFMEA for this project. I can go click on it and the system will take me directly to and open up that DFMEA in the authoring software in AquaPro. Or I can say, I want to look at the process flow or the PFMEA, or I want to look at the risk analysis. There's a risk register for that project. I can click on it and it'll tell you, I want to see the data. I've got 15 projects, and Nikhil's going to show you how you can click on that and you'll get a data display for all those projects, which ones are on time, which ones are behind, and you can click on the ones that are behind and go in and do a complete search through that project to find out what's going on. So when I say this is the Holy Grail, I mean it. I'm not involved in the software development, but when I saw this and I came to understand how it actually works, I thought, if I'm a program manager or a project manager, I can't live without this. This is fantastic. And it's customizable, so that if you are whatever programs or projects you're involved in, there's a menu that allows you to select what widgets you want showing on your landing page. And just think about that for a second. While you're thinking about it, I'm going to turn the flow over to Nikhil and let him show you that I'm not talking about vaporware. This stuff actually does all of this. Okay, and as a user who my career predates software by many decades, this, as I say, is the holy grail. So, Nikhil, it's over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dave. So, as Dave mentioned, this landing page is revolutionary because if I'm which I do as a project manager for the projects that I manage, and we use the tool also for our internal process. And we have our customers in various sectors, in automotive, aerospace, semiconductor, medical devices, you name it, non-manufacturing, service, all of these sectors. So wherever you want to have management systems that will help you as well, to help manage your programs and your projects. So the tool will support that. And this landing page is that one-stop solution essentially for somebody in that capacity to look at the key information and make decisions, and also access information in the least number of clicks. That's another point of view. So from a usability point of view, how do I get to my key information immediately and with lesser number of clicks? That's another key point in this whole the landing page. And as Dave mentioned, you can see right in the center you have the V model. So here, if I'm designing let's say a system that has subsystems and then components below that, I can set my default project so that anytime when I'm signing on to the system, this is what I'm seeing. And on the left-hand side, I have all of my other projects and product families that I'll be working on. And on the right-hand side, you can see the concerns tied to the issue, all of that also showing up. But specifically talking about program management and timeline, you can see right here at the center, we have the various phases of the project itself. And you can see the deliverables coming out of it. And I'll take you more into the details of it in the next few minutes. And you can see all the requests pending for this particular user, the risks, the requirements, also the upcoming meetings, any specific documents that need to be looked at, change requests, and also other widgets as well. And as Dave mentioned, this interface is totally customizable or changeable. So, like as you saw me just dragging and dropping and changing some of these layouts, or even hiding or taking it off, the same thing can be done by any user. So within the same organization, each user can set their own custom dashboards. We can do it by positions where you can have project managers and all that. And today we are specifically talking about the program management part, but in the same organization, you'll have different groups of people that can use the same tool and have their own customized landing page as well. Okay, so let's take a closer look at another one. For example, with this system, the battery pack, and let's say we have another subsystem here, which is a battery management system. Again, could be used in any industry, right? So if I'm going to the battery management system, for example, you can see again with that one click, all the data will basically be updated to the new project that we're working on. So the information in the timeline has changed, the V model will change, and then I can continue this to any level within my V model. So it's not just the top level, but I could go all the way down to the smallest level elements there. And you can see all the other information again will be updated as well. And you can see here also a configuration that Dave was mentioning. We can take baselines of the project where all deliverables coming out of that particular project can be baselined and collected here. Okay, so helps you keep track of both your timing and also ensuring integrity of your deliverables going out to the customer. So now let us go and see what this looks like in a closer view from a program management point of view. So in the software, you can also have a collection of projects that go into a program. So for example, if I'm opening this program up, so for this battery pack development system, for example, and when we go into the details of it, you see the different projects. Each of them are separate projects. So if I want to go into the deeper details of it, let me take you, for example, the battery pack here, which is going to follow the 5-phase APQP model. And when I go into the details of it, you can see also, you can see the different phases here. You can see the different deliverables, status of completion, who did what, all of the standard project management practices that are, for example, laid out by the, the Project Management Institute or the PMBOK guidelines, for example. So all of that again is also captured inside this as well. Added to that is key linkages to the deliverables. So if I have, wherever you see paperclip icons here, we have deliverables that came from the team members who are working on this. And it's all going to come into this one single project where you can set approval routes, where there are formal approvals that can be documented, and much more. With that, let me go to another project within the same program. For example, let's talk about system, software, and hardware development that's happening inside this particular program. And let's say if I would like to go to, for example, the requirements from the customer, the voice of the customer, or let's say the stakeholder requirements. So we can go here and open the information up to see what is the current state set of requirements that is being driven specifically to that particular program. Okay, so let me open this up. And so the requirements management tool that is also tied to this overall solution can also help you capture requirements and manage them all the way from your stakeholder requirements to your system requirements to your hardware requirements, software requirements at any given level. So you saw the V model right up in the beginning where you could have multi-level structures, and at the same time I could capture requirements at any of those levels. So you can see here all the requirements for this particular system. And then so it is right there and available where I can just access it. So if I'm a team member and I want to access this, I can just go here and access it with just a few clicks there, right? So similarly, let's take another example here. With the DFMEA, for example, if I would like to see what the DFMEA looks like, and please note here, you could have input documents and output documents. So we could have standard templates, for example, that you can control via the document management solution that is already integrated into this. And so that you can ensure that the latest and greatest templates are being used by your team members, and that once they are filled out, they can be submitted back. You could do that. In addition, the AquaPro solution that we have that is also part of this, you can just with a single click open up the editing interface where you can create the FMEA within the tool itself and ensure that you have linkages going all the way from your design documents to process documents all the way to your shop floor, like Dave showed in a slide earlier. So you can see this is the AquaPro interface where you have the DFMEA being constructed, and this is going to be serving as the input document. Whereas let's check out what the output looks like. So in the output document here, you can see that this particular version of the DFMEA was approved by the following people. So Alice Whitman, Benjamin, and Gerardo have approved it, and they've given their comments too. So let's see what that version of the DFMEA looks like. So here, this is a frozen version of the DFMEA with information. So essentially, you can take a DFMEA at a given point of time and run it through approvals and baseline it. That'll be your revision 1, which will be stored in your document management solution, and then which can be, for example, shared with your customer or held inside your organization as your clan knowledge, right? So there we go. Yeah. So similarly, any of these key deliverables that you can see here, anything with a paperclip icon is showing that we have attachments and that you have project team members who are involved in creating those as well. Now, at this DFMEA level, for example, I could also, if I don't want to see all of these timelines in a single view, I could go into my document view option, where I can see that rather than giving me like a Gantt chart timeline view of this information, I can see just a list of all documents tied to the given project. And you can see here, there are the input documents, the output documents, and also we can do quality evaluations against certain deliverables and whether they were done on time or not, who are the approvers, everything can be listed out here with ease there. So it becomes very easy to also see the same information in a document view than in a timeline view. So where you have the inputs, the outputs, and also if you have additional documents that can be dropped here as well, right? So this makes things very easy. Now, if you want to have personalized view where it's just team members that are signing on, they need not see this entire list of, let's say, a few hundred lines of project tasks. They can just see their own tasks by going into their My Deliverables tab. That'll just show them what they're supposed to do. And all of this is tied to action management. So essentially, if I'm supposed to do a certain activity within, let's say, work on the systems specifications, then I just have to go and I'm just only seeing those line items there. So all of this is configurable to the way you want that to be shown inside your organization, and makes life easy that way. All right. So let's go also and see, for example, if you want to capture meetings against particular deliverables, going back to the same DFME that we were looking at, you could have also meetings done here. So for example, with the meetings option, you're seeing that meetings were performed on certain topic, attended by certain people. Here, this is when it happened. You have the actions coming out of them that can also be logged and tracked through the system. And then all of this is stored centrally here, including the minutes, and you can have all of that saved here. And then when these meetings are scheduled, the system will send out calendar invites. In the sense, it will send out emails that can be integrated into your Outlook calendars or any other business management system tools there. Okay. All right. So besides that, let us see if I want to, as a project manager, see the status of the overall project here, not just specific line items and reports. I want to see the big picture. Am I on time, or are we as a team delayed in certain thing? So how do I get that big picture view? We have something called as project review here, which will show that overall status with the forecasted target date of completion, project information, details, of course, all of that. Key deliverables, where some of these where deadlines are violated, some of those which were completed on time. Everything is going to be showing up for me. So the risk tied to the project, that is also going to be there. And meetings, key meetings that were held, action items pending, and of course, key deliverables and documents coming out of the system. And what is the status of approval for each of those? So in this given view, it makes it easy to see all that information in a summarized manner. And during your weekly project reviews. This again becomes a very useful page to look at key information about the project as well. All right. So yeah, so this all of this makes doing the reporting, doing the management, that part of it is much easier now, so that engineers can focus their time on doing the actual development, which is value add, key value added into your product design and process design activities. So with that, let me transition over to templates. So so if I want to, let's say this is a good project that I've created a timeline for, and I would like to save this as a template, so that next time when I create a new project, I want to use this template. How do I do that? So we have the options here to convert a project to a template. Similarly, templates can be used to create projects as well. So just like you're seeing in this view, where this Gantt chart was created from one of those templates, I can make the modifications and save this as a new template for future use as well. So let me show you what that looks like. So I have a place where all my templates are saved, and you can see that I could have different types of templates. And again, the tool will help you do any types of projects or programs. So here, for example, this is the 5-phase APQP that you can see that can be used instantly to create, let's say, a new project or program. So you can see the 5-phase APQP there. So that is going to show up. Alternatively, I can use another one. For example, let's say I'm doing a Six Sigma improvement project, and I would like to use a template for that. So again, we have something like that that can be saved and reused next, whenever you have such types of projects. So you have the DMAIC model here that you can use and improve for the next project there. So another one totally very different here. For example, let's say you're trying to implement SCS 9001 into the organization. So how do I do that, right? So for example, you can again have a project template that is tied to the activities of how do I implement SCS 9000 for my given organization, and have that listed out, and team members within the organization listed out as who's responsible and all that in the actual project when I use this template to create that. So the tool is versatile. You can use it for any application again, and you'll see that how it will benefit you. With that, let me pass the mic back over to Dave. So Dave, when you're ready, I will stop sharing the screen. And of course, whenever you have questions, please post that in the chat here, and from there we can go forward. So Dave, you may be on mute. Let me stop sharing. There we go.
Sorry about that. I was having a problem getting my control panel running again.
Not at all.
Zoom does not always make it easy. So let's pick up with looking at this from a supply-based supplier management perspective. And I think the major lesson learned from both the automotive and now aerospace experience, at least that I have been exposed to, is you cannot simply turn to your suppliers and say, on this project, you're going to do PPAP. Go get the standard and figure out how to do it. That is not going to be successful. So you run into these issues, particularly in naive organizations that have not been exposed to this before. Because it was called advanced product quality planning, it got assigned to the quality function, which is, as you know, if you're experienced with this, not going to work. When you look at the project, then the first failure occurs at the front end with inadequate technical and program feasibility analysis. Even before your supplier quotes to you, it's often the case that they have not done adequate technical and program feasibility analysis. And I've been with a company that did a train management system, meaning that they were designing and engineering a complete train system. And when the project team was given the project, they had the authorization to proceed. The business was awarded. They were given the project, and as soon as they got into it, they realized that there were thousands of technical requirements and feasibility issues which had not been identified and planned for and analyzed from a risk and feasibility standpoint. That comes about because the quoting process, the bidding process has been done by marketing and finance or sales and finance without adequate participation by engineering and operations and procurement and everything else prior to bid. So they start out behind the 8 ball. Then when the business is awarded and it moves and that supplier is design responsible, they don't adequately engage manufacturing, production tooling, quality, metrology, and procurement in the design and development process. They've been given this thing called APQP to do, and it involves these different tools, and they don't understand the sequence, the linkages, the necessity for what I showed you in that cascading slide that showed it going from requirements to DFMEA to DVP&R to process flow, FMEA, control plan, et cetera. Those linkages are not understood. They aren't used. The information doesn't travel the way that it needs to. The knowledge doesn't travel the way that it needs to in either direction, by the way. It's not just that the manufacturing operation is handed design. I was in a situation with an aerospace supplier where I was shown a project going onto the shop floor to initiate manufacturing, and there were still boxes in the system that had TBD. They hadn't been designed yet, or the design was not finalized or verified, and yet they were supposed to be setting up a manufacturing and assembly process for it. From the perspective of the customer, doing adequate risk assessment and qualification of the supplier, to the supplier not performing adequate risk assessment and feasibility analysis for the project, both result in running into issues that were not anticipated and which are extremely difficult to deal with late in the program. A lot of this comes from the customer's lack of assuming responsibility for developing and enabling their supplier to be successful. So a key aspect of this is making sure that, to use the tiredest cliche in the world, you have your ducks in a row first, meaning that you have a new product development process and incorporating APQP, and you are prepared to help enable your supplier to meet the same have the same kind of process and the same type of capability. Because of the islands that I described earlier, the disconnects, the work is not standardized and enforced through systems. If you think back to that dashboard that you were just shown and its linkages to things like standard work and deliverables and project templates, timelines, required input documents, required output documents, work products that have to be delivered and have to be developed and generated in a specific way, that all of that is not standardized, and it varies from site to site, from engineering group to engineering group. I mean, within the same engineering office, I'll find that different teams are doing things not following a standard work. And so you get all these disconnects. A lot of this is because the leadership of the supplier don't understand the system, to be blunt, and haven't raised and established expectations for the system and objectives and defined requirements and a reporting structure that enables them to understand what is happening and when and what is not happening. They haven't developed adequately the resources from supplier quality engineering training in core tools, PPAP, all these fundamentals. They don't necessarily have or access adequate resources in terms of trainers and facilitators. Their internal engineering, both product and manufacturing, lack adequate competencies. And then when you look at auditing and assessment, I run into continually organizations who, when they talk about a supplier audit, they're talking about an IATF audit or an AS 9100 audit or an IRIS audit if it's a train company. They're not auditing the APQP process. They're not competent to often. They're doing what a third-party auditor does. They're auditing conformance to a standard. That is not very productive when you're trying to enable a supplier to be successful. Remember, there's a predicate to this. If your suppliers are not successful, you can't be successful. And for many organizations, and when you get into automotive and aerospace, you get to the top tiers, the OEMs in both industries, a lot of them are not engineering any of their product. Even Mercedes, which historically has engineered at least their drivetrain in their electric vehicles, they've outsourced the drivetrain. The electric motors, the battery systems, all that are outsourced. So they basically become integrators. In fact, aerospace OEMs, that's how they describe themselves. They're integrators. They purchase everything and put it together like Lego blocks. So everything in that aircraft or in that vehicle has been produced by first tiers and sub tiers of suppliers. So obviously the end result is the effect of the capability of all of those vendors and all of those suppliers to develop and launch the product successfully and to maintain that product and the system for producing it ongoing. There's a lack of support to the vendors. The idea of a supplier quality representative who routinely works with a vendor to help them with their launch, to help them with resolving problems. You know, the classic, I'm sending a supplier quality, a SCAR or whatever the supplier, it's up to them to fix it, is not effective. And we see repetitive failures because the root cause work, the adequate engineering and analytical work isn't being done because the systems are lacking at the sub-tier suppliers organization. So when you think about working with vendors, it starts with the leadership of those vendors. Years ago, I actually spent the better part of a year going around the world doing presentations to the executive leadership of first-tier suppliers and second-tier suppliers to an automotive OEM to do exactly what that first bullet point says, to help them understand what at the time TS 16949 was, what APQP was, what PPAP was, but most importantly, what was the value proposition to them? What's in it for them? How do they benefit in terms of enhanced competitiveness, higher profitability, lower costs, much lower risk in terms of failures, and the value of implementing effectively these kind of systems. We just spent 3 years with a global company that has 12 different business units making completely different products, 72 manufacturing facilities around the world. And the process we went through with them was training the executive leadership in APQP and in core tools and in automotive-based management systems, even though most of them were not automotive, incorporating the elements of IATF that would enhance their performance, that would enhance their competitive capability and the value proposition. And then going down to the site level and going through a similar kind of training for the site leadership. And then going down to the team level and training teams and how to do DFMEAs, PFMEAs, process flows, FMEAs, control plans, how to do MSA studies, how to do SPC, how to characterize process capability, how to improve process capability, and ultimately how to generate PPAP evidence packages based on doing that, so that we're enabling. The theory behind all of this was at each level of the organization to enable them to be successful at developing and launching and ongoing manufacturing of new products. Conducting regular supplier conferences with one of the aerospace companies. I think I participated in about 18 different supplier conferences where large groups of suppliers were brought in and were walked through the expectations of that aerospace company, plus training for everybody present in APQP and FMEA in particular, and in problem solving. Deploying these methodologies and systems and enabling the suppliers to be successful. And then conducting workshops, not just giving 2 or 3 day training on how to do an FMEA or how to do MSA, but going in on site and going through workshops that result in producing good output, but also really instilling competencies and capabilities. That kind of collaboration is what's necessary. You can't simply push requirements to vendors and say, here are the requirements, do them. Not if you expect them to be successful. So like the platform that Nikhil just took you through for program management, new product development, in response to this need, we've developed a platform for supplier quality management, which it takes everything from supplier audits, which can be designed specifically to your expectations and requirements. They're not standards based, to effective supplier corrective action, tracking, registers, review, approval, all of that, supplier performance metrics, supplier APQP, where they can do APQP and they can submit their deliverables for PPAP directly into the system, supplier documents and records, and even receiving inspection results. So it's a comprehensive platform. And again, it's central. It runs off of a landing page and is all fully integrated. And having said all of that, I'm going to turn the floor back over to Nikhil and let him give you a quick look at that.
Thank you, Dave. All right, so let's take a look.
We're going to try to be quick because it is getting late.
Yes, yes. So as Dave mentioned, so earlier you saw me sign on as, let's say, a project manager, and now I'm maybe signing on as a supply quality manager. And at the same time, I want to know key information about my suppliers here, and all the different suppliers, the different PPAPs they're going to be submitting, and what is the status with that, and what are the concerns that I need to be worried about, any things needing my approval, all of that showing up on the single landing page. And you can see how the same landing page can be transformed from an internal use, again, primarily doing internal projects now, where your suppliers are involved and their submissions to your system, and how you can keep track of all of that in one single view. And for example, in this site that I'm going to take you to, you can see all the different suppliers that we can have. For example, with the supplier called AeroMode, where you can see that, this is my supplier, this is my SQM, and my SQEs here, and my parts that are going to be supplied by that particular supplier is also listed on this view. You can see there are so many different parts. And let's say I want to sample one of the parts, like the bus part that's being delivered by the supplier. How do I do that? So to do that, I can go to my projects and in the projects, you can see that particular project that you're working with the supplier. So you set the deliverables and the expectations. Again, templates can be used that you can use for different suppliers, and have standardization of deliverables from different suppliers as well. So you can see the different deliverables here, and after the expectations are set, and the supplier can come here and drop their deliverables. So they will have a similar login view where they will sign on and they will access the same project. And when they access the project, they can see what deliverables they're supposed to be submitting, and they can drop the documents. And then it can be set to go through an approval route where within your organization, maybe some of the PPAP deliverables need to be approved by engineering, some may need to be approved by somebody, some other group. All of that can be custom set, and then the workflow can happen automatically, and so you can have clear acceptance on deliverables and tracking to timelines, etc. by the supplier, right? So coming back to the portal, just like what you saw with the internal program management, similarly, we could also have a dashboard that's going to summarize all that information for you, which is something that is very helpful. All of our customers love it. And you can see here the status of all the different PPAPs that are coming up and are pending. What are the different projects? How many of them are running behind? How many of them are on our target? All of that information. And I can again do deliverable level filtering even if I want. So it makes life easy rather than going through 100 different projects and kind of trying to summarize information. Since we're pressed for time, and we just have to also, we've also covered the key content here. So maybe I will hand it back over to Dave. And Dave, you can help summarize the webinar.
Okay. Coming back, in conclusion, this fundamental idea of APQP being completely integrated into new product development so that it's seamless. So what, those project plans that Nikhil showed you, the templates, all of the activities required in a new product development launch process are in there, and the deliverables, the inputs, the outputs, all of that, so that it's one contiguous process. It's not separate bits here and there and everywhere. The second principle is the fundamental one, which is that given that your supplier's success is essential to your own success, the kind of collaboration we've been discussing has to extend in both directions beyond each organization's boundaries. The relationship cannot be simply transactional. The activities between the organizations have to be integrated with each other, coordinated with each other, understood on both sides of the boundaries. Remember, the boundaries between organizations are arbitrary. They're vertically integrated organizations where those boundaries are maybe just sites. And the process runs from the component level all the way up to the higher system level. So the boundaries between organizations are artificial and have to be overcome by consciously designing your system. Teams collaborating, not just in the activity they're responsible for, but with others, all of which is enabled by the kind of platform solution that Nikhil has just demonstrated for you, so that disparate sites, disparate teams can all integrate their activities, coordinate, share their activities, even work on the same thing together from remote sites because of the integration of these platforms. Now, to support that, obviously, we have evolved services for every aspect of it, even staffing services for temporary filling of project management positions, or even supplier quality manager or quality manager positions. We do engineering design, software design and development. We do obviously with organizations' implementation and coaching in their systems and their processes. We can provide internal and external assessments, internal audits, second-party audits, and product certification for functional safety. We have a complete battery of training for those in the automotive industry, evolving into the AIGVDA approach to FMEA and classic 4th edition and SAE J1739 FMEA approaches for everybody else. In the PDF file, there is a lot more information related to what is available. And as I said, some content. So you will be given notice of how to access and download a PDF of this webinar. And that brings us to a close. What I'm kind of curious about is I don't see any questions. And surely some of you out there have questions. Maybe not. If you do, there is the Q&A icon there. Go ahead and open the Q&A icon and type in your question. Well, I'm not seeing anything happening, so we must have been really comprehensive. Nikhil, did you have a comment?
I see one question, Dave. There was a question about does the APQP module support this is actually from one of our customers from the automotive sector asking, does it support reverse FMEA functionality? I think that's a straightforward answer, right?
Yes.
Yes. So, yeah, so to answer that question, yes, it does support the reverse FMEA requirements. I think you're referring to the customer specific requirements from Ford, yes.
Well, and related to that, for those of you who might not yet be aware of it, Ford has published customer specific requirements for FMEA that essentially require a supplier to use software like the software that Nikhil has described to you, particularly the APQP module that we didn't go into in depth, but the authoring software, the functionality that's in that for creating parent FMEAs and inheriting information to subfamily FMEAs, and for knowledge management, and for the hardwired linkage between the process flow FMEA and control plan. Those are now functional requirements, and Ford is requiring that you employ a software solution for that. Looks like there is another question. Yes, the question is, has BMW done the same as Ford? And the answer is essentially yes. They have published a CSR document requiring FMEA software be used, and they require AIGVDA FMEA. So the other comment that I'll make is that the APQP software enables you to develop an FMEA and generate it as an AIGVDA FMEA, as an SAE J1739 FMEA, or as an automotive AIG 4th edition FMEA. Fundamentally, by simply putting the information in, you can then generate it in any one of those formats. I believe that's correct, Nikhil?
That is correct, yes.
So you only have to do it once. In other words, even if you've got a customer that wants the same FMEA done in the automotive AIGVDA, and you have a non-automotive customer, say an aerospace customer, they want the same FMEA, you can generate it in the SAE J1739 approach, which is at this point the preferred aerospace solution for aerospace PPAP. Okay, well, that seems, you're seeing different questions from me, but I don't see any more questions. So obviously, you can feel free to contact Nikhil and I via email. If you have additional questions, I'll be happy to respond to them. I hope this has been informative and helpful. It's a lot of information in a very short period of time. That's the way webinars tend to go. But we appreciate your taking the time to join us. And thank you. Wish you a great day, evening, night, depending on where you are in the world. And hopefully we'll see you back for any of the future webinars. We're generally running at least a couple a month on a variety of subjects, and you can keep track of that by getting on our email list and by visiting our website at www.omnex.com. And you can also view previous webinars by becoming a member, and that gets you access to anything that has been published or generated in our member. I forget what they call the section, but I think it's a membership. Resources. Yep. So with that, I will thank you for your participation. And Nikhil.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you. Everybody take care. Be safe out there. Thanks. Bye-bye.